Judge Andrew Napolitano with us. So the big news dropping last night in California, the Menendez brothers, it looks like they may not spend the rest of their lives in prison. Break down what the judge said for us.
So they were sentenced to life without parole, which means life in California.
That was back in the 90s.
Correct,
yeah.
Life without parole. They were sentenced in an environment in which the defense of my parents abused me sexually was not taken credibly and was not considered a defense to murder. Today it would be. They have successfully petitioned to have themselves resentenced today as if that defense had been valid at the time, if you follow me. So yesterday they were sentenced to 50 years, which sounds like an enormous amount of time, but since they've already served 35 years, they're immediately eligible for parole. It doesn't mean they're going to get parole. However, the sentencing judge, who obviously was not the trial judge, who read the transcript of the trial, said, in my opinion, you have served enough. That will weigh very heavily with the parole board. So even though I predicted, when was it, Monday, they'd be up at the end of the week, mea culpa, I was wrong.
Well, how long does this parole board take?
Great question. I think they'll be out by the end of the year.
End of the year?
By the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
All right. So also in another courtroom, big win for President Trump.
Yes.
Well, and the justice, because the judge in the Milwaukee case indicted by a federal grand jury for helping the illegal escape.
Right.
It's not really a surprise that she was indicted. After the public arrest, it would be humiliating if the government weren't able to persuade a grand jury to indict her. I wish they weren't prosecuting this case. It's a legal dispute over the validity of an administrative warrant versus a judicial warrant. An administrative warrant, one federal agent authorizes another federal agent to arrest somebody. The Constitution says only judges can issue warrants for arrest unless the police officer observes the crime. She said, send me the arrest warrant. This isn't an arrest warrant. I'm not going to honor it. So it's basically a legal dispute.
Okay.
A legal dispute should not be resolved with one of the disputants as a criminal defendant, but that's where she is. She's suspended with pay from her judicial position. They can't do it without pay because she's publicly elected. Her lawyers will have to move to have this dismissed. The government will move to have it go to trial.
She did help the person escape with their lawyer out the back door.
Right.
And had to be chased down outside by feds.
Because she believed there was not a valid warrant to arrest him.
Right. So what do you think happens now? What do you think happens?
Well,
do you
the
think
last time this happened, it was the identical state of affairs. It was a trial judge in Boston, arrested, removed from the bench, went to trial. A federal district court judge threw it out. That trial judge is back on the bench. I think the same thing is likely to happen now. She can't plead. If she pleads, she loses not only her judgeship, but her license to practice law.
And in another case, also immigration related, a federal judge upheld the president's use of the Alien Enemies Act.
So a federal judge in Pennsylvania issued an opinion diametrically opposed to a federal judge in Texas. The federal judge in Texas said, Venezuela is not our enemy. We're not at war. The law doesn't apply. The federal judge in Pennsylvania, both of these judges are Trump appointees, by the way. The federal judge in Pennsylvania said Tren de Aragua is the equivalent of an invasion. The statute applies. What happens now? The federal judge will be appealed to, in Pennsylvania, will be appealed to the Third Circuit. The federal judge in Texas will be appealed to the Fifth Circuit. And then those two appeals will end up with John Roberts and company.
It all goes to the Supreme
You have
Court.
two orders. You have an order restraining the use of the Alien Enemies Act anywhere in the United States, and you have an order permitting the use of the Enemy Aliens Act anywhere in the United States. What to do?
What to do?
The president will just start deporting them again.
Probably. However, even the order that says you can use it says, he doesn't want to hear this, they're each entitled to a hearing. Why? Because the statute itself, written in 1798, says you get a hearing.
And gave him 21 days notice.
Yes.
So that's a lot more. Judge, we didn't even get to Pete Rose, P. Diddy, none of that.
All right.
I know, so much.
Pete Diddy
is
a disgusting case. We can discuss it tomorrow.
We're actually going to get to it
Pete
right here.
Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame.
There we go.
There we go.
Saying that as a lifelong Yankee fan.
All right, Judge.
Information. Truth is freedom. is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.